period.
And it's in Germany.
And it's in Germany, which, like the NFL knew what they were doing. But Tyreek Hill in a revenge game, that's something else. And he's been saying all the wrong things this week, depending on how you look at it. He's like, we're gonna cause problems. And I don't doubt it. And he's unafraid to say that. And I know this game, he said it's like playing against your brothers and that sort of thing. But I think there's some animus from Tyreek Hill. He really wants this one. Thursday night time machine.
Now I got to say something.
What you got to say?
What we do is we text our scores to the Cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I was texting mine, I mistyped the last digit, which happens to be the second digit of the Titans
losing team's
score.
Yeah.
Okay, spoiler.
Oh, you're on the same side as me.
And I asked everybody, do I go with God and what he or she is telling me to pick the score? Because obviously that's not an accident.
Yeah.
Or do I go with my original intention?
Yeah.
And the room was pretty much split down the middle. I'm going against God and with me.
So we won't have a winner this week because you both picked the same score.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Second time this has happened.
The exact same score?
Exact same score.
2016.
Steelers.
Oh, my goodness.
So what do? We take a prop?
And we can't go total.
We can't go total.
We need to
Do you
think
want
of
to
a
do a Will Levis
tiebreaker.
prop?
Or do I just go with God? I'll go with the God score.
What was the God score?
20-15.
I sat there for a while. I almost did 20. I thought you were going to be on the Titans because I know you're a big Zag guy. Mm-hmm. And I thought you'd just be zagging because the other day on the show I liked the Steelers.
Do the first half. Why don't you do the first half
Oh,
score?
what's the first half line?
First half total is 17.5.
Okay. I'm texting you my score right now.
What if I think it's going to be a tie? I got to commit to the tie?
17.5.
Ugh.
It doesn't matter because the under's the play. The under's the play. I text this to Kingston last night, okay, because you know me, Mr. Research, as if it's doing me any fucking good. 21, 6, and 1 over the past couple years are totals if you take the under and if the total's 37 or lower. Did we text the same score again?
Just about. Chris has 10-7 Steelers. Macon has 10-6 Steelers.
That's what I was going to do.
All right, I kind of feel good here.
Okay.
I kind of feel okay here.
All right. Yeah. Good luck to you.
Wait.
Wait.
All right. So listen, we won't break this game down in the breakdowns. We'll break it down right now so people. Not that you can bet it. It is Thursday morning, or it's Friday morning as you're listening. It's Thursday afternoon as we are talking about this game. This is like the Battle of Megiddo, which is it's a 15th century BC battle between, of course, the Egyptians and the Canaanites. It's the ultimate rock fight. I mean, these guys didn't have anything. You know, there was no Northrop Grumman. There was no, it was just fucking. It was Mike Tomlin. And he wants to beat you in a 13-10 game, and it's Mike Vrabel. This is the ultimate Mike Vrabel spot. The only way it'd be a better Mike Tomlin spot is if they were dogs. So this is going to be a slugfest. And I think it's
going to be Derrick Henry, 3.5 yards a pop. Najee Harris, 0.8 yards a pop.
Yeah, I hope not Najee Harris. I hope we get more Warren. And so, like, one thing I'd look at is last week Will Levis had 272 to throw. That's going to change this week. If you want to drop back and bake a cake a little bit against this defensive front, they're going to get there. So the operation's got to speed up. I thought Levis was pretty good on early downs outside of the shots. I mean, like, listen, there's some things where you can see he's not throwing a guy open sometimes. Sometimes the ball placement's a little bit off. It might be on somebody's back hip. But for the most part, I was really impressed with this kid, and this is a great opportunity for him. This is just a great opportunity. Tomlin, 23-5 against rookie QBs. I think what's going to be interesting to see is, like, you're down Minka. How do those safeties play for Pittsburgh? Obviously, last week, and we fucked this up, it wasn't a wheel route. It was ETN on a go. But on the right sideline there, you undercut that route, and that ends up being basically the difference in the game. I know they lost by 10, but that made it feel like it was out of reach. And so I think that's going to be a big thing. How does the secondary play on the back end? We talked about Levis manipulating eyes. And Derrick Henry in general, is there a usage up? Are you upping the usage? Because for a month, if you asked me a month ago, are they going to trade Derrick Henry? I would have said they're not sure. If anything, it's 70-30 trade the guy. As we got closer to the deadline, it was clear they were asking a lot. And then when what happened on Sunday happened, you were like, yeah, they're not going to trade him. So Cam Hayward back. What does Kenny Pickett feel like? I would get the screen game going. You got good matchups outside with the wide receivers. I like taking shots for the Steelers as well. I talk about this every week. In a game like this, you can flip the field and change the complexity of the game, and not the complexity, the complexion of the game. That's an important distinction.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people screw up.
It's not going to be a very complex game.
Contingent and contingency. You all need to look up those two words.
Well, something is contingent on something. A contingency is a noun.
Well, it's also the Steelers contingent will be in full throat.
That's true. Yeah,
tonight.
Full throat. That's good. So yeah, we're both taking the Steelers, but I feel stronger about the under. We'll see how that plays out. Macon, before we get into our breakdowns, the big news, and this, like when you do a podcast, I was in here talking about the trade deadline at like 10 p.m., came back and talked about the trades that happened after we recorded on Tuesday, and got home, getting ready to go to bed. I'm like, fuck, we missed the biggest story of the day because Josh McDaniels got fired in his pajamas. And that's got to be, I don't know if that's the best or worst way to get fired. I asked a head coach this week, would you rather be fired, after midnight or, like in the middle of the day? And he was like, I'd probably rather be fired in the middle of the day so I can go to sleep. Like Josh McDaniels, you get fired at 11 p.m. You're not going to sleep much the rest of the night. How do you go to bed after that?
Danny Green of the Philadelphia 76ers was called at 2 a.m. to say, hey, Harden's been traded. A bunch of guys are coming over. You're getting cut.
No way.
Couldn't you have waited until morning time?
That's wild. No, you had to get James Harden out of there. And I want to give a worst flight one more time to PJ Tucker, who's like, yeah, you're getting traded and you're going with James Harden. Like they got to hop on the G5 together. And maybe PJ Tucker likes James Harden. And maybe he's not like everybody else on the planet, it seems. But yeah, so Josh McDaniels gets canned. If you really want to read up on what led to this thing, I think Vic DeFore does a great job. He wrote an article for The Athletic that was all-encompassing, and some of the things I'm going to talk about are things that I read in this article, but also it's clear to see that the players aren't happy with Josh McDaniels. And when you hear about the way it went down, it seemed like Mark Davis was taking input that entire day, that entire week leading up to the decision, and some of the meetings he called were with players. And I think if I had to guess, those meetings weren't real kind to Josh McDaniels and only confirmed what Mark Davis wanted to do or was being pressured to do or felt pressured to do. But he canned Josh McDaniels, and it's 2 years in. Some of the things that Vic mentioned in the article are predictable when you think about Josh McDaniels or a former New England coach, epic meeting lengths, constant criticism, monitoring of social media accounts, which to me is a bridge too far for an NFL coach. Like, come on. Like, fuck, dude. You're not Dabo Sweeney. So my big takeaway, honestly, and one more thing, NFLPA survey from March. This was anonymous. 1,300 players. They had report cards they filled out for their coaches, and McDaniels and the staff graded last. So, like, obviously not a kind of deal. Although you heard Max Crosby's his comments on this, and he took the high road and was like appreciative of the contract they gave him. That's probably the big thing that they did right was extend Max Crosby, but that's a no-brainer. You look at all the things they did wrong, and I'll get to that in a second. The list is long. Him and Ziegler fumbled a lot over the 2 years that Josh McDaniels was the head coach. So my main takeaway, honestly, and we just talked about this guy, Mike Vrabel is a tremendous NFL coach because it seems like every other New England guy, turns into a pumpkin when they leave Foxborough at some point. Not everybody. I mean, Dable's having trouble now. I don't blame that all on him. You can go down a long list of guys that coached in New England and haven't had success, and Mike Vrabel is that one guy that seems to get the most out of his team. So just a chance to tip my cap to Mike Vrabel, but this is a list of things that Josh McDaniels and this team has done since he took over the headset. Blowing 5 double-digit leads,
Yikes.
failing to score 20 points in 9 of the 10 last games, losing to Jeff Saturday. That's a big one. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's crazy. He lost to Bajent in his debut, a D2 quarterback. Lost to Baker Mayfield 3 days into his Rams tenure. A lot of bad, ugly losses that he incurred over just a short 2-year span. It's the second time that Josh McDaniels gets fired.
Baker out there wearing the number 17 for the LA Rams.
Yeah.
No less.
That was wild.
Mm-hmm.
But losing to Baker Mayfield, it's not the worst of it. 2 times now Josh has been a coach and hasn't survived 600 days. I mean, I think he's the only coach to get 2 head coaching jobs to get fired this quickly in both of them. They were supposed to lose to the Lions, right? Why that game, I don't know for sure. Maybe it's the visual of Devontae Adams not getting the ball, being frustrated. Maybe it's the shots that Jimmy missed. And I think it probably also is like a twisting of the knife that, like, hey, not only did we hire this New England guy, he brought over a New England quarterback. Mm-hmm. He wanted it his way. And this guy missed 2 shots. And the Raiders didn't even cover. Okay? That's just me talking. But it's the Lions. You were supposed to lose that game.
And you give another guy a shot, home Giants, home Jets.
Yep.
That's an opportunity to get to 5-5, and then you can, if the decision's already made, this is as good a time as any.
It's as good a time as any, but the curious thing about the timing is it happens after they don't sell at all on the trade deadline. So it's like
you're not setting up good for a future head coach.
It's a dysfunctional,
because you don't get anything back for some of the guys who might be valuable enough to send
It's a dysfunctional
else.
situation, Reed. You're not getting anything back for the new coach, and like we'll talk about who might replace him, but I don't think this Raiders job is that attractive. We were talking about it earlier, like, how liquid is this ownership? It's not a group, but, like Mark Davis and that family, it's only going to get worse. They could have stacked some capital going into the deadline. They didn't do that. This is a place that's not like, it's not a place that's going to spend money on a coach, although to add insult to injury, Josh McDaniels was owed a bunch more money, 4 years of that money on his deal that they just paid. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's interesting. It's kind of the definition of dysfunctional. And for a coach, like if you look at the Raiders, they've had like 6 coaches the last 10 years. If I'm a head coach and I have multiple opportunities, I'm probably, just for the fact that you look at that 10-year track record, you don't want to be the 7th. There are some things that are attractive about this team. Max Crosby, no state tax.
End of list.
Yeah. Nice stadium. But
I am rooting for Antonio Pierce, though. I'm excited about that.
And that's the thing. I gave out the Giants earlier this week, and fucking go figure, the way the universe, I would have never given out the Giants had I known they would have an interim head coach this week. This is the spot where teams step up, and they love Antonio Pierce. You can tell, and he's a fucking great guy. Get to hang out with him when I was a young player at the Super Bowl. I think it was Fred Robbins, one of my teammates. We went out to a bar and hammered a bunch of beers with Antonio Pierce, and he's just the guy that you want in your locker room. Like, he's a guy you wish you played with, and that's an interim head coach. That's a successful interim head coach to a T. And actually, what's wild is the Rich Bisaccia decision seems even more curious now.
Right.
They didn't like the play calling in that Cincinnati playoff game. They thought that, like that's what it came down to. They got worse offensively.
And the players seem to love Rich, whereas the last 2 years have not gone that way.
It's the absolute opposite. And, a lot of times, like when you break up, you break up with your girlfriend or something like that. The rule is you don't date the same gal next. And I could do this for ladies too. Like, you
zag.
You just broke up with a tall king, go get you a short king. Mm-hmm. You just broke up with a guy with golden blonde hair, go get you a tall, dark, handsome Jimmy Garoppolo type. When you have 2 offensive coaches in a row, like, what's the odds that they're going to hire another one? I don't know. I don't know how Mark Davis thinks, but a lot of times owners go the opposite direction the next time. And I think what complicates things is, like, obviously everything hinges on drafting a quarterback. And so, like, I don't love having a defensive head coach drafting a quarterback. Even if you have a boy wonder OC, he's going to get another job at some point. So they're kind of up shit's creek. And when you look at what Ziegler and McDaniels did over the last 2 years, the Carr situation, you paid him, and then you couldn't trade him after you benched him because of the no trade clause. So you give him a no trade clause, and then he walks and you get nothing for him. Renfro, and this is interesting because we thought he might get traded, but that contract extension they gave him before they didn't use him at all this year, it's like he disappeared. You couldn't trade him because of that contract. And then the Waller thing, obviously, and if you're more into the rumor mill, he got traded 10 days after the wedding. With Kelsey Plum. And there was like talk about Josh McDaniels fucking that thing up. Like he leaked the wedding details to the media accidentally, like a big whoopsie. And Kelsey Plum tweeted, well, that's why he's not on the invite list. And later she said she was joking, but was she? I didn't invite Jeff Fisher to my wedding. I love Jeff Fisher. I'm not saying I'm reading into that too much, but all these moves have just come back to blow up in their faces. And like when you look at that offense this year, even the run game, you thought you could hang your hat on that, Josh Jacobs. He's nowhere to be found. So kind of crazy when you look at it. And here's one more thing, a bit of trivia for you, Macon. You're not going to get this. For you, the listener, too.
I did get a trivia earlier about Val Ackerman.
That was good.
Which you nailed.
That was good. It's in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
This might be out of your wheelhouse. Raiders head coaches since Tom Flores. Who do you think has the highest winning percentage?
Guy who coached Marshawn Lynch?
No, actually, it was Art Shell.
Art Shell?
No shit, yeah.
Oh.
Art Shell, way back in the 90s. Actually, he had 2 stints, and in his first stint, his winning percentage was like 580-something. The next most winningest coach by winning percentage is Rich Bisaccia. So it's not an attractive destination, so it's going to be a coach that probably, more than likely, feels like this is one of his last opportunities. And I think like Lou, due to being a defensive head coach, he's been around a long time. He's not the hottest name every year, but I really respect the guy and what he's done in Cincy. And he seems to be like a leader. So I think Lou Anarumo, I think Brian Flores, Ivero in Carolina, he's done a great job with that defense. You know, Ben Johnson's name gets thrown around, and maybe he wouldn't want to leave Detroit for Vegas, especially after he decided to stay another year.
Here's the deal. Doesn't it come down to the interview? Because if you look at the division leaders, there is no blueprint. Miami, position coach under Shanahan. Baltimore, John Harbaugh, special teams coach, been there forever. Jacksonville, Doug has done it before, but didn't stick around at the last place. Kansas City, Andy's been there forever. Philly, Sirianni, what, a position coach?
Tie-in coach.
Detroit, Dan Campbell, position coach. Atlanta, Arthur Smith, coordinator. Seattle, Pete Carroll, been there forever. I think you probably go the coordinator route just because there are a lot of attractive names. Bieniemy still hasn't gotten his shot.
Right, and he could be somebody if he doesn't get the Washington job.
But just sit down in front of a guy and see if he's normal. Like, no shade. This Matt Eberflus cat, I cannot fathom how he aced an interview.
He was super cool when he came on the show.
I know he was.
That's
but
the thing. Like, guys can be cool. And he's
sideburns,
probably cool. Guys loved him in Indy.
His sideburns are all the way up here.
Here's the thing. Being a head coach brings out something in somebody that you wouldn't have seen before that. Like, that's just the way it goes. Like, I've experienced that. You know, like, I've had head coaches that had, you know, there were guys on my team that before they were head coaches, this coach coached those guys, and these guys would say, like, this is a different dude. I mean, like, he's not acting the same. He's not moving the same. He's not saying the same things. And I think that's the tough uncertainty there is, like, what's this guy going to be? He could be super well-liked in his room, but then when he becomes a head coach and he's got the big office, how does that work?
And as you recently said, a couple of guys who have failed the opening presser have turned out to be really good.
Exactly. You almost want bad press conferences out the gate. The guy I didn't mention was Mike McDonald, who's done a really nice job in Baltimore. His name will be thrown around there. And, like, listen, there are other offensive coaches. I don't mean to say they shouldn't hire one, but these are the concerns. As for the Giants-Raiders game, this is that spot for the Giants. I really do feel like the Giants might win this game. I think they cover. But I'm nervous about Antonio Pierce.
Yeah.
I think the big question is, and this was early in the week, I think the Giants, both tackles were down. So what happens with that around game time? And then Aiden O'Connell's going to get the start, which I think is interesting. Enjoy Wink Martindale, Aiden.
Yeah, heat him up.
Well,
Hey, if Devontae's going to be 5 yards clear of anybody else, just throw the ball up there.
Throw the ball to Devontae. I think this is going to be an interesting game. I'm not saying it's great. Initially, we had it slotted in the mid tier. I think I put it in the mid tier because anytime there's an interim head coach or a Jeff Saturday or one of these guys, like I love to see what happens. It's kind of and I'm not diminishing what being a former player and an assistant coach is, but like it's kind of like just walking in and being handed the keys to an NFL organization for a week. It's kind of like winning a bid in an auction and being like, hey, I get to coach a team for a week. Antonio Pierce is not on anybody's radar as far as being a head coach. This should be interesting. So I put it in the mid-tier.
This is quite the come-up because he was caught up in the Herm Edwards, Arizona State. We're not completely playing by the rules sort of stuff.
That's true.
Head coach in Vegas.
And speaking of coaching, and we'll get into our one big thing in a minute, or one thing.
Yeah, it's huge.
Huge thing, our one huge thing. A couple rumors that came out. Number one, you brought up Antonio Pierce leaving Arizona State, the come-up he's had. How about Harbaugh staring sanctions in the face? The Chicago job might open. And that's something that's circulated this week.
He could pull a John Calipari. Like Calipari was under investigation for paying Marcus Camby, took the job at UMass.
That's like leaving the country.
Or at the Nets, sorry.
That's like leaving the country, like and you know when there's a warrant for your arrest, is like going to the pros for these guys. So
and he could also win a national championship
And then
before
do
he's before
and
he's
you
asked
think
to
they
leave.
legitimately have a shot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you watch more college ball than me.
They score a lot of points. They don't allow a lot of points. They're really good.
So, he could win a natty and walk off and go back and coach his former team, which I think would be pretty interesting. So the other rumor that came out this week, and it's Pro Football Talk. So I don't know if they just made this up. I don't know where this came from. Before what I'm about to say, just know that I'm kind of fucking around. But I do, as a fan, I would love to see Bill coach somewhere else. I think it'd be so fresh and so interesting. And I think DC, as this rumor goes, with the Commanders, would be
so fun.
Would be so fun on so many levels. I know a lot of people in the NFCs probably wouldn't want to see it, but I'm not afraid of the Commanders. I want to see Bill coach Navy lacrosse and coach the Commanders at the same damn time. Think about how happy he'd be to be within driving distance of the Naval Academy.
Yep.
There's a lot of good.
Hometown
You
of
can go watch
Indianapolis.
all those great lacrosse prep teams.
Yep.
Scout them out, and he'd be in his hometown.
And a new sexual market. I mean,
Yeah,
he's
that's
been
true.
in the New England sexual market for a long time now, and he's single Bill.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
He's single. He's ready to mingle. He's ready to go to the Capitol and get.
DMV.
Yeah. So okay, we've got one thing. Did you hear Bobby Knight died?
I did.
Wonder if they're gonna bury him face down
So
his
they
critics can kiss his
ass.
I really do wonder that.
They should.
Somebody needs to get in contact with the mortician in Indiana and just find out what they're doing there. I know it's kind of like a weird thing to talk about, but he did say that. It's one of his most famous quotes. Bobby Knight won, okay? 83,
Years old, yep.
tall, and angry. Like, those guys aren't supposed to last, man. That gives me a lot of hope. I'm not even angry. I'm just tall. He lived to be 83 years old, lived a full life. You could talk about his legacy being controversial, complicated, that sort of thing, but I want to talk about the coach. He's like the first guy you think of when you think of old school coaches that you can't do that shit anymore. You think about headbutting a guy or throwing
strangling.
a chair, possibly strangling a guy.
Yeah,
He strangled a
footage
guy.
was pretty clear, yeah.
And listen, I don't condone that. I think the game has changed. Sports have changed. The way we talk about, player-coach relationships has changed. But I sat down last night and watched an entire Roy Firestone special on Bobby Knight. It's on YouTube. And let me tell you something. I might just start watching Roy Firestone specials. This is like it's the best 45 minutes of my week so far, was sitting there watching this special. Not only did I got a chance to meet Roy Firestone when I was a kid because my dad went on his show, and he was the nicest guy in the world. And when you look back at his interview style, it's kind of goofy. It's kind of this is great. He had to spend a whole day with him, Roy was sitting in a fucking chair on the baseline. He's like, I'll be the guy you headbutted. Show me how it happened. Explain it to me. And they're doing a whole like thing where Bobby's showing him how his back was fucked up and he tried to bend over and then his back gave out and he ended up headbutting the guy. And then he's like, well, okay. Later in the special, he's like sitting on the baseline again. And he's like, Bobby, show me what happened when you allegedly kicked your son.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And so he's doing that whole thing. And he's like, I didn't mean to kick my son. You know, I was
I
kicking
thought
the
he
chair.
should go back to the headbutt incident and see if the story changed at all.
Right. Go back later in the day.
Yeah.
Now, I came away from this thing and like, listen, yesterday, my college coach, Al Groh, was in town. So Al comes in every year.
Bill Belichick coaching tree, I'll go.
Yeah. Belichick coaching tree, coach with the Jets. Nice.
9-7.
And sitting with Al for 2 hours yesterday in this studio, talking ball, got to bring him over. He wants to come on the show, shit like that. He's so old school. He was so tough. You know, some of his methods might not be okay today. The things that were said, you know, and like, you know, when you hear Bobby Knight calling somebody a jackass, that sort of thing, that's pretty benign compared to how football coaches act. But Al was an old school coach. I mean, like he's sending me footage last night at 9 o'clock after we hung out of Oklahoma drills from 2003. Like, this is what made us tough. You know, like he's just that kind of guy. And I have an appreciation for those kinds of guys. Even though Bobby's legacy is complicated, when I watched this special, I came away thinking he was good for the game of basketball. And he was good for a lot of the guys he coached. I mean, obviously he was a great coach. But even some of the players that he seemed to be really hard on had great things to say about him after the fact. There's things that people don't talk about with Bobby Knight. Like they listed a whole bunch of stuff, raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the school library. He hired deaf kids to be student managers. Landon Turner was a guy that he coached that was paralyzed in an automobile accident. And he quietly raised money for him, set up an endowment, and went as far as calling Red Auerbach to say, hey, could you draft Landon?
Wow.
And Red did it. Sent him a championship ring, the whole thing. When Coach K's dad passed, this was another story. It was like maybe in the middle of the season. I might be butchering the details.
Coach K, of course, played for Bob Knight at Army.
Yeah, he played for him at Army. And by the way, one funny thing was he was too tough for Army. Like Army kicked him out of there because he was too hard on the cadets. And Bobby's response was like, if we're playing at Madison Square Garden and a bunch of people are coming to watch our armed forces play, like, don't you want them to play hard? Don't you want them to be tough? You don't want them to come and say, like, you want them to be confident in the military, which I thought was beautiful. But Mike's dad died. And instead of just, calling the family, giving Mike some time off, Bobby flew to, I guess, Chicago, right? And spent 3 days with his family and was there for the whole thing. And, there was even as harsh as he was and rough around the edges as he was, an instance where, and I don't support this because I think this is what made him, a negative figure at times in sports. They were doing a rally. There was a couple thousand kids in the arena, and there was this heavyset guy, as Bobby Knight called him, talking to Roy Firestone. And the heavyset kid asked him, why don't we put more seats in the arena? Like, why can't we fill this arena? Like, why can't we fill this arena? Why can't we? And he said, well, if you get your fat ass out of the doorway, and more people would be able to fit into the stadium, which was like a terrible thing to say, especially when you consider the fact that there were a bunch of people in the arena, and this kid was understandably really embarrassed. So the kid wrote Bobby a letter and was like, hey, Bobby, I was embarrassed by that, like a couple weeks later. And Bobby reached out to the kid, brought him to, Indiana, the field house or wherever they were practicing, and set him up on a program, gave him full access to the facilities. The kid lost 150 pounds. And, so that story to me epitomized Bobby Knight. And, too rough around the edges at times, like harsh, hurtful, all that stuff. But I really do think he had a good heart deep down in there.
He knew basketball better than just about anybody in the history of the world. Like, last guy to have an undefeated season in college, record that hasn't been touched since '76. And in 1984, when he coached the Olympic team, He said that Michael Jordan was the best basketball player he had ever seen.
He was right.
He hadn't even stepped on the
He was right.
on the
Somebody
NBA court yet.
said we need a center. He was like, draft Michael Jordan.
Play
Play him
Jordan
at
at center.
And I just, like, I know some people are listening to this, like Bobby Knight, bad guy, some of the things that he did at the end of his lifetime you don't agree with. I don't agree with some of the things he did at the end of his lifetime or said, or things he thought. But as a coach, I watched this and it made me appreciate him a little bit more. And it also made me understand where he was coming from. He was so resistant in this interview and, like, in general, to accepting praise for the nice things he did. Like, the way I think Bobby Knight's head worked was like he wanted good things for people. He wanted to get the best out of his players. He really cared about his players, and the methods weren't the most agreeable.
No, there's a famous book. Like, this is my recommendation for you this week. Rather than a movie, we'll do a book. It's called A Season on the Brink. I bet Macon
I heard it's
remembers it.
Feinstein.
Feinstein book. He lets Feinstein in to every practice, every locker room for the whole season. He's not trying to hide that he's kind of inspiring by fear. He just thinks that the ends justify the means.
But he was so resistant to, even in these stories came up, like the Landon, the Landon Turner story. He gave all the credit to Red Auerbach.
Yeah.
You know, like whether it was Mike Krzyzewski, like he's like, what the fuck? Why wouldn't anybody go out and support that kid and stay there for 3 days? Or, you know, why wouldn't you do this? He never wanted to be like, yeah, I did a good thing. And I think he had such a hard shell. But I think somewhere in there was soft core where he really cared about the guys he coached. And so I would suggest, you know, whether it's that book or, you know, check out this Roy Firestone interview, because for me it was really illuminating. The guy did some good things, and he was a great basketball coach. And he also signed a basketball for me in St. Louis. I got to meet him.
Wow.
At the Ritz-Carlton. He was doing a signing. I lived like across from
Carondelet.
Yeah, Carondelet Plaza in St. Louis. And somebody I knew was like, hey, I'm working this Bobby Knight convention. And, you know, I asked him, you know, Chris lives across the street. Can he come over? And he was like, absolutely. I watched his dad. I watched Chris, like, come over. And I was shocked by that. And,
That's awesome.
And when I went back to meet him, he was the nicest guy in the world, signed a basketball for me. Now, that's one interaction. There's a bunch of people who probably tell you Bobby Knight was an asshole to them. But I think as a coach, he had a net positive effect.
It would have been even cooler if he was like, hey, man, fuck off.
Yeah, fuck off, Chris.
Yeah.
I walk
Billis
all the
wrote
way
a great
across the
piece.
street, fuck off.
Jay Billis wrote a great piece where he said he was the only friend he had to, like, explain to his other friends how he was friends with them.
Yes.
Justify, but the Bobby Knight he knew, he loved.
And that's the thing. It seemed like Bobby had a tight circle and was selective about the people he cared about. But when he cared about you, he would go to the end of the earth for you. And he's just a different kind of guy. I mean, those guys don't exist as much in sports today. And it's a different time and a place. You can't do that. You can't grab players. You can't throw chairs across the court. Although it was hilarious watching him justify that. He was like, and this reminded me of myself when I fuck up, is he was like, yeah, but I threw the chair in the one place where nobody was going to be. Roy was like, you could have hurt somebody. He's like, I knew I threw it exactly in the right place.
Well, what if that chair hit some kid and busted his knee?
Sure, but it didn't, did it? Because I threw it exactly where nobody was.
So these are the images we see over bad boy Bob.
But I don't create those. Somebody else makes an issue out of that, not me.
You look back at that YouTube video, him throwing that chair, it's hilarious. They got the AD down on the court.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I thought they were going to have to get the police to get Bobby Knight off the fucking court because he was a big guy. When I met him, he was 6'5". He had to be even taller back in the day. But, you know, at first when Bobby Knight passed, I was like, not much to talk about. Like on our show, it's a football show. Some of the things he thought at the end of his life, it might be a touchy subject for some people listening. But as a coach, I got great respect for the guy. And like I said, 83, tall and angry. That's a lot longer than some tall, angry guys last.
Billis wrote, driving with Knight was a unique experience. Unite experience. I never saw him wear a seatbelt. So riding with him meant enduring the torturous, repetitive dinging of the unfastened seatbelt chime, all while Knight pretended he didn't hear it.
Honestly,
I know. I know.
I do the same
I
thing.
know.
I do wear my seatbelt now. But I used to just fucking, yeah. So anyways, that's my my one huge thing. Rest in peace, Bobby Knight.
All right, let's get to the NFL previews.
Let's do it.
Our tier concept today is backup quarterbacks, and we have a pretty electric top tier.
Yeah, so backup quarterbacks. Obviously my top tier is going to be Big Dick Nick Foles.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who's yours?
It's Doug Flutie.
Yeah.
Flutie replaced Rob Johnson.
Yeah.
Goes 8-3, leads the Bills to the playoffs. That was when he was 9 years in between stints as a starter in the NFL. Goes to a Pro Bowl that year.
Yeah.
The next year, Flutie leads the Bills to 11-5 record.
Yep.
And then Wade Phillips, they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Wade Phillips starts the backup Rob Johnson in the
Yep, I
playoff
remember
game
Rob Johnson.
instead of Flutie.
Yeah.
Rob Johnson goes 10 of 22. The Bills lose in what is now considered the Music City Miracle game.
Mm-hmm.
But Flutie as a backup was electric, and then ironically replaced by a guy himself who went
Who's
on
not going to be
lose
the namesake of any of our tiers, Rob Johnson. He's somewhere in between all these tiers.
And Flutie, you will have forgotten this, finished his career backing up Drew Brees in San Diego and Tom Brady in New England.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
21 years.
That's wild. And I don't know how much Flutie never throws that Hail Mary. Is he as big a name? We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Wearing 21. Flutie Flakes.
Mid-tier, I'll probably give that to Chad Henne. Big Chad Henne fan. He'll get the job done for you.
Go Blue.
Supposedly a great guy. And then the lowest tier for me was, I hate to say it, Nathan Peterman.
Yeah.
Pretty unanimous.
Yeah.
I mean, is that who you had to?
Well, I went historical. I went Spurgeon win.
Okay.
But, yeah, Peterman's an easy
Mid-tier
choice.
for you?
Bubby Brister.
Okay.
He backed up Randall Cunningham and John Elway. Elway missed 4 games in the 98 Super Bowl season. Bubby Brister took him to 4-0.
Oh, Bubby Brister. So here's the dilemma, Macon. I've talked to you about this. The biggest game of the weekend, if you're not a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and you could argue that's the biggest game of the weekend, I wouldn't argue with you. But one that everybody is all over right now is Kansas City, Miami. And that game, and I love these games, international games, wake up, fix your breakfast, watch the game, maybe get up a couple units or down a couple units, and you kind of know if you're Chris
Either
Long or
way, your
Chase
heart's
Long.
pumping.
Yeah, your heart's pumping. It's early. You get the juices flowing. It's a 9:30 game. And this week, Ryan Russillo texted me and said, hey, Chris, do you want to go down to the LSU-Alabama game? I've been trying to go to a random college football game. Me and Bad Back Backy have been talking about going to a random college football game. We were going to go to a Charlotte game with Biff Poggi, or we even thought about we were going to get some fucking nosebleeds in West Virginia and watch them play BYU this weekend. Just go up there, just total tourists in Morgantown, and it's still something I want to do because, as an ACC guy growing up in Charlottesville, the one school that gives me pause if I look back again and say, like, hey, had I done it again, maybe where would I have looked a little harder? West Virginia. I just would have loved playing there. I feel like that atmosphere is crazy. The John Denver shit, the whole
Burning
thing.
couches.
Yeah, burning couches. I just love the whole vibe. It's like a beautiful college park. Like it's if College Park had any value aesthetically, because I love West Virginia, the state. But I end up getting this text from Ryan Russillo, and he's like, hey, you should come down. I'm in with the LSU people. And, it's not a lot of opportunities you get to go see one of these games. And I've had these opportunities almost every year where he texts me like 5 days before a big SEC game. He's like, come down here. Never been to Tuscaloosa. I think I'm going to do it. And asking you guys, like, what do you do? Like, my wife said yes last night. I said, sleep on it. Tell me in the morning. And she said, go. I got the best wife in America. But Dolphins Chiefs is like the only time I can fly back. And when I asked Ryan when the bars close in Tuscaloosa, he said they close when they close. So I got a lot of different things going on in my head trying to calculate, can I get back on time to see some of this game without going straight from the bar to the airport? So I think what's going to end up happening is in the beginning of this game, I'm going to be up in the air, and I'll be landing around halftime, which is hard for me because I really want to see this game. But I think this is the right move. You said it earlier. You were like,
generally, I say stay home.
This is one.
There's nothing out there.
This is one.
I think this is one you should do.
So I might be in Tuscaloosa this weekend. That's my hello.
So we're on the heels of regretting not going to Baton Rouge
Exactly.
a year ago.
Exactly. So yeah, I didn't go to Baton Rouge. That turned out to be a barn burner. And I'm going to do it this year. So I think I'm going to be down there at Bryant-Denny seeing what it's all about. My first exposure to Bryant-Denny, of course, was on the Ali G show. I don't know if any of y'all used to watch the Ali G show.
I did.
And he went down there and and trolled the entire stadium, and got in the locker room, had a press pass, was interviewing Shaud Williams. Remember Shaud Williams?
Shaud.
Yeah. And so that was my first exposure to Brian
He doesn't
Denny.
get down like that.
I can't wait. Yeah, I cannot wait to get down there and see what that place is all about. But Dolphins, Chiefs, I'm a little nervous because you like the under.
Yeah.
I like the under too. But what I don't like is the fact that the Chiefs, which is the side I lean, went out on a Friday.
Yikes.
Yeah. Thursday, Friday.
I think it's Friday. I thought they were going out today, but they're cutting a little close going out on a Friday. I don't
Yikes.
love that. Dolphins got there early. I've seen practice footage of them.
Say no more.
They're in Germany. I'm kind of nervous about the Chiefs' travel decisions here.
Did the
They got further to go.
Were the Chiefs waiting to bring along like a really good wide receiver by any chance?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, but that hasn't happened. Now, one guy I think they use more this week is Rashee Rice. You know, like staying out of the situations where you're trying to throw the ball outside the numbers to Jalen Ramsey. You saw what the numbers looked like last week for Mac Jones on that side of the field. Get him in the slot, get him the ball. A little bit more yak. They're up towards the top of the league in yak, but more would be good because it just doesn't feel like this is an offense that's incredibly explosive right now. You got to get the ball in your playmakers' hands. They're going to get Javon Holland back, it looks like, Xavier Howard possibly as well. This secondary for the first time all season is playing together. And so Vic Fangio, all the excitement that all the excitement that came with him signing as the defensive coordinator in Miami, it kind of faded as they played kind of average throughout this season. The offense is fantastic. If they can put together like a kind of top 5, top 10 defensive push towards the end of the season, they could be number 1 in the AFC. So this is a big opportunity to show what everybody was looking forward to seeing, which is this really good secondary with Kohu in the slot where he's comfortable, the whole thing. I think it's, the Broncos played 6, they played 3, they sat back. This is a game where I think you might see some of those same elements for Miami, and you got to block Jalen Phillips, you got to block Christian Wilkins, and you got to be able to run the ball. That's going to be a big deal for me. And probably in a matchup with 2 high-flying offenses, on the surface, I think both teams want to run the ball. If you look at ways that they can move the ball, it's running the football, especially Miami, because Kansas City quietly has been kind of middling in stopping the run. And so I think those are the keys. When Kansas City has the ball, I see a bounce-back game from Patrick Mahomes. They don't lose 2 in a row a lot, okay? The last time it happened was 2019. So this is a spot that, if it's possible, feels like a buy low for the Chiefs. Right, like if you watch that game last week and you don't know football and you don't know why it happened, you're probably like, there's no way they beat the Dolphins 2 weeks ago. Feels like a year ago they lost to the Eagles. They went out, put up 31 points on the Patriots. They looked good down there. I think it's a buy low spot for the Chiefs. I'm worried about the travel. On the other side, the matchup that I'm really excited about is Spags against Tua. I know there's more people on the field than just Tua. But Spags is a guy who I think will have a way to take away his first read. And, the Chiefs play cover 1 more than anybody. So when you man up Tua, it's going to force him to make those tougher throws. There is a percentage that's not insignificant that they break a long play or you get burnt. But I think they're going to get their scores anyways. Take chances, challenge them, in the right spots. I think on early downs too, like mixing in some tight coverage, mixing in some cover 1. Tua's 32nd out of 37 quarterbacks versus man coverage. So, like, if you get pressure on him, he's not the same guy. If you man them up, it's risky, but he's not the same guy. When you get in these situations and Tua feels pressed, I think he's going to go depth of target deeper. He's going to try to take shots. And honestly, if I'm playing Miami and I feel like I have the offensive firepower, sometimes I'm going to take chances because, if they're going to score anyways, let me take the small percentage chance that they fuck something up backed up because you were aggressive. Like maybe that's why I'm not a defensive coordinator in the NFL, but I like being a little bit aggressive. And the matchups are going to be huge. I mean, Tyreek Hill, when he gets in the slot, I worry about McDuffie. I don't know who they put on who in key situations, but the thing I'm unsure about for the Dolphins is going to be Armstead's practicing. It looks like he's going to play. I would guess. That window just opened up. You probably get Connor Williams back, but that offensive line with Robert Hunt not practicing, maybe by this point he's trending a different way. But as of yesterday, hadn't practiced. What do they look like up front? And for Kansas City, Karlaftis, Omenahu, these guys got to have big games. I mean, like, Chris Jones can't do it all. And I honestly think Chris Jones is the perfect type of weapon to have on the other side of Tua. We talked about pressure in the middle of the pocket. He's that guy. I mean, he's a big, tall body. He can knock passes down. He can reset the line of scrimmage. Tua's a shorter quarterback. I actually think this is the biggest matchup of the game in the trenches is going to be Chris Jones against that offensive line. So no A-Chain or A-Chan. No win. Kansas City's rush defense has got to be good, and somebody other than Chris Jones has to win.
I'm even more sold on the under after that breakdown.
You think you feel under after hearing that? Yeah, I feel like it's an under game.
Last 6 acts to play this stadium.
Yeah.
Coldplay, Ed Sheeran, Beyonce, Depeche Mode, Harry Styles, and The Weeknd.
No way.
Yeah.
Now it's my homie.
Now it's Miami, Kansas City.
Yeah, and I think also something to note is like favorites generally play well in London. I mean, those numbers back that up. And Mahomes in tight spread games, very good. So
biggest game of the year so far?
No, I felt like Eagles and Dolphins. Yeah. That's what it felt like to me. Maybe it's the proximity to the team, but primetime Sunday night. Kansas City's coming off a loss. Like, it takes a little bit of the luster out of this game.
Yeah. Could decide the number 1 seed, though.
It's one of the best games of the year. Yeah. Period.
And it's in Germany.
And it's in Germany, which, like the NFL knew what they were doing. But Tyreek Hill in a revenge game, that's something else. And he's been saying all the wrong things this week, depending on how you look at it. He's like, we're gonna cause problems. And I don't doubt it. And he's unafraid to say that. And I know this game, he said it's like playing against your brothers and that sort of thing. But I think there's some animus from Tyreek Hill. He really wants this one.
5-3 Bills are at the 4-3 Bengals. Bengals favored by 2 points at the moment. Buffalo averaging fewer than 21 points per game in their last 4. Cincy has won 3 in a row, including a 2-tutty win over the Niners last week.
I love this spot for the Bills. I do. I mean, like, I just feel like it's a buy low spot for the Bills. I mean, even though they won last weekend, Bucks made it closer than it needed to be. You're down at tight end. You've had problems scoring. You've had problems everywhere. You've had defensive guys banged up. I think Josh in this spot. Last week, I felt like they burnt the ships a little bit. He ran the ball more. They said, "Fuck it, like we're going to get an 11 and we're going to run out of gun and that sort of thing." Like, I like that here. The big question for me is Josh's shoulder. Last week looked like the old Josh, but there's a cost, right? He comes out of that game, he runs the ball, and he bangs up his shoulder. Now, I don't know how he's going to feel, but I loved seeing the adjustment in 11 personnel. You can run the ball in 11 personnel versus Cincy. You can get them out of that bear front. You're gonna have some quality rundowns. When they're in that bear front, they are tough to run on. You've seen that recently as that defense is rounded into form. One thing is, Josh does struggle against cover 3. I think it's probably because he's aggressive. He's going to take those shots. 3 deep coverage, just more bodies back there. There's more cushion. He's got to figure out when to take the profit, and Kincaid makes a big difference for them. He ran a route on the left sideline last week, and it just looks so different. Like, he is a pass catcher. So it fits this offense well. And, like the Bengals, the defense, the turnaround they've had coming in weeks 5 to 8, 7th in EPA, 25th through week 4. That is a huge turnaround. So whatever they do to flip the switch on this team, like maybe we need to talk about Zach Taylor more as like a really good football coach, because I feel like we every year we're like, this guy, you know?
And we also credit Big Lou, though. It's Lou Anarumo.
And they weren't very good. They weren't very good the first month of the season, but they have come along. And on the other side of things, Sean McDermott, I think the biggest question mark for me is, are they going to widen coverage and change leverage up, or are they going to constrict the middle of the field and make Joe throw the ball outside the numbers? I don't know what the answer is there, but I think you stay out of cover 2 against Joe Burrow. I mean, Rasul Douglas, a guy they just brought over, is a big help. Obviously, I talked about playing with Rasul Douglas. I thought he wasn't a great scheme fit in Philly. He kind of was figuring things out. He went to Green Bay, where they don't play a lot of cover 2, and he excelled. And, you know, now I think with this group and seeing that you have Sewell in the building, maybe this is the week you play more 3. I think he's going to help a lot. And like Buffalo, they're going to run the ball out of 11. So, you know, Kyle and I talked about this, some of the gun run stuff. At times they've leaned too heavily onto that because I think Joe's was unhealthy, obviously, for a lot of the season. It's easier to just turn and hand the ball off. The downside is the momentum that you create under center in the run game is so much different than a guy who's got to step sideways and carry the ball. It's one of the reasons I like the pistol if you're running out of gun. But the angles are different. So they've gotten that going a little bit more. And against Buffalo, it's not a bad place to be. So both teams really evenly matched the way I look at it. I like the over. I think there's going to be scoring in this game. And I lean Bills if they're catching 3 points.
Cincy is plus 330 to win the AFC North. Feels like good value. Only a game and a half behind Baltimore, who's minus 130, and you still have another game against the Ravens. You're 0-1 against them so far, but since he's starting to get it rolling, like that plus 330 value.
I think one of two teams, we've said this, one of two teams wins the AFC North. And it for a lot of the season, it's been the front-running Ravens, who nobody expected to be in first, not many people, and then the Bengals, who are fourth for most of the year. And I think those two teams are the teams, ironically, that could make a push to win this division. I think also something that's interesting, and plenty of people have talked about it, you are back to the scene of the DeMar Hamlin deal. And it's a primetime game. It's going to feel very similar. How do guys react? I don't know how that feels. So emotionally charged game, a game between two AFC elites, two great quarterbacks. I can't wait for this one. And the thing about this Sunday is it lines up. You got a fucking great game in the morning. You got a great game in the 1 p.m.s with Baltimore and Seattle. You have a great game in the 4 p.m.s with Philly and Dallas, and then at night you got a great game too.
Yep.
So it makes it easy to like fill out your chart. Which teams do you want to really be watching in real time? Like for us, it's great. You know, we're going to be focused on those games primarily, and this one's going to be a great nightcap.
The 5-2 Cowboys are at the 7-1 Eagles. Philly's favored by 3 points. It's Dallas that has a point differential of plus 77, second only to San Fran and the NFC at plus 78. Philly is plus 52, despite having 2 more wins than Dallas.
And also, Philly just hasn't had the same amount of blowouts. You know, Dallas, couple games, Giants, Rams, that sort of thing. But you take into account, that's still impressive considering San Francisco, dog walked them.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing I want to see this game is Dak and Jalen against each other. We haven't seen that yet. We had Cooper Rush on one side of it one week last year, and then we had Gardner Minshew on the other side of it last year too. And if you're the Eagles, you have to feel good about the way that game played out because they moved the ball on those guys. And, there's the infamous the don't block Micah Parsons game. I think it's going to be interesting what the game plan is for that. Mike is going to come into this game with a lot of baggage upstairs. How is he able to compartmentalize what he remembers from last year and just say, anything could happen, I need to play my keys, I need to play fast? I think one thing that's also interesting, when you look at this rivalry over the past 5-7 years, longer, because this is when I was there, but we couldn't beat them with Zeke. That was the thing with the Cowboys. They had this rushing attack. They had this really good front that could not neutralize our front, but a front that could be equal. And then, then it's the linebackers against their good backs and that sort of thing. And I think when you're going on the road in a hostile environment, you have to get the run game going. So that's going to be a key to me. The Eagles have been very good stopping the run without committing a lot of bodies to the box. And this is a game where what scares you the most is probably the guys outside. You don't have that Zeke power attack anymore. I got a lot of respect for Tony Pollard, but the run game is not as central a piece in what they do.
Tony Pollard has run for more than 72 yards only once this season in the loss to Arizona.
It's not what they do anymore. You know, like, and maybe shocking with McCarthy calling the plays. I mean, he's more of an old school guy, but they just have not run the ball with a ton of success. So you don't have that thing that was the deal breaker for the Eagles anymore, and you're playing on the road. Tyron Smith's probably playing, but to me, can the Eagles hold up on the back end long enough? Because if they can, I like the matchups up front. As good as that Dallas offensive line is, we saw some protection issues at different times this year. It's not the same group as they had 5-7 years ago. You know, guys are older, new pieces. I think this is going to be very interesting to see what happens in that phase of the game for the Eagles pass rushers. I think the Eagles need to be better on third down. One thing that shocked me about the Eagles is they have not been great on third down defensively. It shouldn't be shocking, but where they are, it's like bottom of the league.
Bottom five, yeah.
Bottom five of the league, stopping teams on third down. And they're really good in the run game for the most part because there's big bodies inside and that sort of thing. So I don't think it's a thing where they're facing a ton of third and shorts. They just can't get off the field sometimes. And so your matchups have to be really good outside. You have to pick your spots. This is going to be interesting. And for the Eagles, you're a week away from your bye. You've got this murderous stretch. This is going to be a game you really want to get going into that bye. And also, you'd love to get out of it with Jalen Hurts being healthy. But with the game on the line and in key situations, for me, if I'm the coach, I'm still running Jalen Hurts. He's going to have a bunch of time after this game to get that fluid out of that knee or whatever it is. They kind of haven't really given us much on what the injury is, but he's been in a brace. He's still a weapon with his legs. They're still putting him in that trash compactor running the brotherly shove every week. So I would, when there's a chance to tuck and run it in the red zone, that type of thing, you got to have this game, because you're going to see him again to go up 1-0 in this series and put a little bit more distance between you and the Cowboys in the NFC. And not to mention the Lions, you look at the stretch of games down the stretch. For them, they're not challenging games for the Lions. Like, the Lions are going to keep winning. So going on the road shouldn't be an option for the Eagles come playoff time. And in the NFC, the Niners have taken a step back. The Cowboys have taken a step forward. This is a team you want this first win against because the next time you play them, you want to play with a little house money. And so Gilmore and A.J. Brown, Bland and Devontae, huge matchups. It's got to be a Dallas Goedert game, in my opinion. Dallas Goedert's got to have a big game, and they got to look for him because I think if there's one place the Cowboys aren't very good or they're not as good, it's in the middle of the field. I got to have something from Dallas Goedert. And the Eagles need to avoid the turnovers. Jalen's, got 11 turnovers this year. That's too many. So if I'm Dallas, I'm fucking with the looks, late rotations. We talked about maybe he likes to have pre-snap static. Take that away if you're the Cowboys. This is going to be a great game.
Maybe, Cowboys.
I'm betting the Eagles, by the way.
I was just going to say, if you're an Eagles fan out there, if you're a Cowboys fan, we're going to be watching this game live in Studio 425 on Sunday.
Yeah.
So come hang
Check
out
us
with us.
out.
We've got a big Miller Lite announcement. So
Big!
if you want to be a part of that and you want to be the first people to
Yeah, you
be
don't
able
want to hear about that later.
Yeah. Got to listen. Got to tune in. YouTube.
YouTube.com.
Maybe something, maybe nothing, because there's so little natural grass in the league anymore. But doesn't Dallas just feel like an artificial grass team? Sample size is very small. 0-1 this year. Levi Stadium, they lost 42
That's
to
interesting.
10.
That's interesting. I think for rushers, for dynamic guys like Micah Parsons, I remember Robert Quinn. He didn't like playing on grass as much.
Micah
Even though he
said-
had his best year in Chicago from a numbers standpoint.
Micah's on record saying he likes the fast track better, not the grass.
They are a fast team. They play fast. When they get on top of you, they don't slow down. There might be something to that. I think more than anything, being at home for them is just a huge thing. They're not the same team on the road. And so it's a big test for Dak. It's a big test for Jalen. I cannot wait to see two premier quarterbacks that people talk about every week going head-to-head because we haven't seen it yet.
5-2 Seahawks are at the 6-2 Ravens. Seattle has won 5 of 7. Baltimore has won 6 of 8. All right. Baltimore, an NFL best 15.1 points allowed per game this
Yeah,
season.
yeah. Baltimore's defense is very good, but I got a dirty secret about Baltimore's defense. Here's their dirty secret. These are the quarterbacks that they've faced so far. An injured Burrow, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Kenny Pickett, DTR, Josh Dobbs, and Jared Goff outdoors.
I just heard 5 Hall of Famers. I don't know
Yeah,
what you're trying to tell me.
What I'm trying to tell you is this is the first time that they're really going to be tested in the passing game to this degree. I mean, like, and we talk about Geno having a slump, like being up and down the past couple weeks. They've had problems in the red zone, but like go back and watch that game last week. Some of the top end throws he makes are incredible. I mean, we talked about the one in the corner of the end zone where he's got to escape the rush, roll left, and just dots. I think it was Lockett. It was a gorgeous ball. And, you know, there was another one in the red zone that he put right on the money, under pressure in the same spot, doesn't get caught. Like, he's as good a thrower of the football in those touch situations as anybody. I think the biggest problem for Seattle is they don't seem like they're on the same page in the passing game all the time, Geno and the wide receivers. There's a couple instances last week where, you know, late in the game, I think at the end of the third quarter, he almost throws a pick six down 2017. And I think it's a miscommunication. I think it's a miscommunication with JSN, and you know, like the route combination probably says he needs to continue his route outside. He sits down, he damn near throws a pick six on that ball, and DK a couple times early in the game. It just looks like they're not on the same page on some of the intermediate stuff. So I think for Seattle, they have to know where they're going with the football. You got to know exactly where you're going to be because this is a defense that can make you pay. I mean, they're pretty good. You know, the quarterback thing notwithstanding, they got to be better there. Can they run the ball? I don't know. I mean, they had a couple explosives last week. This is a front that's played really well. They want to build a flat wall, all the stuff we talk about, which is actually a pretty good approach against this team because I think of Kenneth Walker as a guy who is patient, you know, like he's going to hide behind the line and that sort of thing, and he's going to find any horizontal seam he can on some of that inside zone stuff. And so that's going to be a big deal. Can you run the ball? Is Abe Lucas back? No, he's not. And that's a big deal to me, although they did a pretty good job of protecting Geno last week considering who they were playing. I think the Abe Lucas thing is curious. He got an ejection like 2 months ago. He's not back. So that's what it looks like when Seattle has the ball. When the Ravens have the ball, one thing to note, Lamar Jackson 17-1 against the NFC teams. Now, that was your stat.
Had it.
I don't know what the fuck that means, but it's not good if you're the Seahawks. And I think the Seahawks are a different team on the road than they are at home. Obviously, you got a same situation, fast track, loud crowd, the whole thing. They're going to be on the East Coast. I think this is an under game. I think the defenses are going to play better than you think. And I think the big advantage for the Ravens is their red zone and third down on defense. That's a big advantage for Baltimore. That has not been something that Seattle's done well. And conversely, when we're talking about the Seahawks on defense, they've been tested the last 2 weeks against Cincinnati and Cleveland. This is going to be maybe their biggest test. And I want to see if they pass it because I think they are a team that can make a push. And if they get home field advantage or play a playoff game or two at home, they are a team that's in the conversation, especially making moves that signal we're serious, like the Leonard Williams move, which is a good move to make with San Francisco coming up a couple times in a month. And then, you know, obviously a team like this is very physical. So I think it's going to be great to see Leonard Williams in that uniform. He looks like he's having a great time. And it's just a huge test for the Seahawks.
Last time against Seattle in 2019, Lamar ran for 116 and a touchdown. The mid-tier, the Chad Henne, Bubby Brister tier.
Okay, Commanders-Patriots. I'm psyched about this game. I said it earlier in the week. I wanted to play the Patriots. Some of y'all were like, don't play the Patriots. Now the line has jumped to 3.5.
Well,
what do you got?
Washington has lost 5 of 6 and will be without Montez Sweat and Chase Young this week due to personnel reasons.
Yeah, that's good.
Personnel. It's usually personal.
Oh,
due to
okay,
personnel
got it.
reasons.
I get the joke.
Yep.
I get the joke.
You got
and,
it.
And definitely a factor in this game. Like, you think about trades, oftentimes you don't roll them right into the game plan that week, but like this is two elite edge rushers. I don't want to use the word elite, but like really good edge rushers. And you shipped them off. It signals like where you think you are, and it also really factors into this game because Mac Jones under pressure is not great. And so like now you just got to worry about the inside guys. Hill, he's going to get some burn outside. We'll see.
So
But
why'd the line not move? It was -3 before the trade, still -3.
the line hasn't moved because it's 3.5 where I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think those guys moved at a half point, and everybody else moved the Patriots to 3. So I'm like,
Well, Mac did lose his favorite target in Kendrick Bourne.
no
Placed on
question.
an IR.
But I don't look at that as like losing his strength because that's not even a thing that you can really hang your hat on. I think this game is going to be a middle of the field game for the Patriots. That's where they got to live. You know, like the commies running a lot of cover 3. Okay, so you want to work the seams, and that's a good coverage if you've got tight ends and wide receivers who can't separate. Like if you have tight ends who are your strong point, relatively speaking, you got wide receivers who can't separate. Just run the seams, hit your outs, and move the ball down the field. The commies are bottom 10 in run defense. So I think this actually sets up pretty well for the Pats offense. And on defense, Sam Howell's not real great when he's pressured. And I'm not talking about just a young quarterback, not real great. He's 29th in the league when he's pressured, and 28th versus the blitz. So he's going to see that stuff. And the interior of that offensive line, Paul, Larson, Cosme, they got to step up. This is going to be a fun game. I know it's kind of maybe a rock fight. Yeah, maybe I'm a little partial to it.
The Bucks are at the Texans. Texans are favored by 2.5 points. Total is 40. One of these teams will be 4-4 on Sunday at about 4 o'clock Eastern.
Is this the biggest stay away of the entire weekend?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, I have no idea what to say here. I lean Texans. Like they're laying points on the road. It's 2.5, so you can kind of like slide under that key number, but and then the total's right at 40. And when I asked Nolan earlier what he thought about this, he goes, if the Bucks win, it's going under. If the Texans win, it's going over. I think that's the hard thing about this game is like it could go two totally different kinds of ways. I think the sample size is too small on the Texans to really feel strong about this game, but I do lean Texans. Can the rushers get home from Houston? I talked about last week. They're playing the Panthers. Bernard, Anderson, and Anderson, I really like watching. He's good in every phase. Okay, like I don't know if he's going to be that elite pass rusher, but I'll be damned if I don't respect the hell out of his game and the way he hustles and the way he plays down and down out. Bernard on the other side had a monster game. I mean, he ran Taylor Moton the fuck over, or it was Ike Ekwonu, a couple of times. I mean, like a couple of times, beating him inside, running him over, flat backing him. They got to have that same kind of game out of him. I don't have much to say about this game.
How frustrated do you think Willie Anderson is? 6 straight games without a sack.
I've been there. I've been there.
High pick.
Yeah, I've been there. But I don't think the heat's up on him because it's funny like the way we treat some of these rookie defensive ends. It depends on the market you're in. It depends on how the team's doing. Like the Texans are playing well relative to expectations, so there's no heat.
And the pick that they would have had this year would probably be a lot worse player than Willie Anderson.
And I don't think that conversation's coming yet. Yeah. I don't think people, if you ask somebody on the street, how's Will Anderson playing, most people don't know. And I think he's playing pretty well. But like I said, in evaluating him, he's not like an elite speed guy. I think he's got to really continue to lean into technique and power because he is twitchy, but he's not like a Von Miller on the edge. So he needs to keep working his stuff. I like his game. I wouldn't worry about that too much, especially because you're getting more out of Grenard than you probably thought you would. Contract year for him. He's got 7 sacks, had a couple buckets last week. The Bucs passing defense has been getting shredded. Swiss cheese. They're non-existent. Run game is a problem. Okay, I drafted Rashad White fantasy. I think he's on my bench. You know better than me.
You have a really good team. They're all on your bench.
Yeah.
But you're just not setting the old
Earlier
lineup.
he was imploring me to set my lineup.
It was a suggestion, and
Yeah.
I identified my own personal interest ahead of time.
No question.
Tampa Bay is on pace to post the NFL's worst rushing success rate since the Ravens in 2013. Not just the worst this year, the worst in 11 years.
Which is wild because they have fucking guys up front.
Tampa Bay's second leading rusher, Baker Mayfield.
It's wild, dude. And I love seeing his short little legs motor down the field. But if you're the Bucs, like somebody's got to run the ball. And I don't know what the hell's going on there. But the Bucs passing defense is a problem. I talked about that. The run game, those are weak spots. And they're going to man you up. They're going to blitz. C.J. Stroud's done pretty well in those situations as a young quarterback. So I kind of like the Texans here.
And even more interesting, the Bucs boast this year's Coach of the Year in
Coach of the Year, Todd Bowles,
Yeah.
according to Stanford Steve.
All right, low tier, Nathan Peterman starts with the Vikes and the Falcons.
Yeah,
one of these teams
You call the Jaron Hall tier.
will be 5-4 at about 4 p.m. Eastern. The Falcons are favored by 4 points now. The total is 37. It'll be Heineke and Hall.
Yeah, and another 37 and under total. Like, just bet these as a system, man.
It's scary, though, with the new quarterback coming in.
It is scary. It's a real unknown commodity. I know the commodity on the Falcons side. My guess, 27-17 Falcons. So maybe don't bet it. That was my guess earlier today. But like from an standpoint of, and maybe it's 27-10. But I think the Falcons win this game, and I'm really scared shitless to bet them because like they're laying like 4 or 5 points early in the week. I wanted to bet them again. The line moved, and I couldn't tell what was going on with the Vikings at quarterback because they traded for Josh Dobbs. Maybe they're still going to play Josh Dobbs. And they've said Jaron Hall is going to play. O'Connell said that, but like could be a smokescreen. I've seen Josh Dobbs pick up offenses pretty quick. He keeps popping up in these spots where he's got like a heroic cover as a dog, or some of these early Cardinals games. I think I'm just really excited to see Heineke play. And I know Falcons fans, some of y'all that are in the Desmond Ridder hive, don't like me. I had a guy in the comments last week that was like, "Nah, bro, you got to stand on that bad take." I'm like, when did that take become bad because you guys all of a sudden scored 16 points some game? You guys are going to be right where you are if you don't make this change. And Arthur Smith, who I think is a good football coach, but like it has taken forever for him to admit this. And I don't know if it's the owner. I don't know what it is. But, a week ago, it was like Ritter's starting. That's just how it is. And then like 3 days later, it's like Heineke's starting. So I don't know if it came down from up high that like, hey, I'm over this thing. But I think Heineke, the way he looked in that second half, he's just friskier. Some of you guys aren't going to like that word because you're going to be like, what the fuck does that mean? It just means a guy who, when things break down, the risk reward is a better equation for you as a team. I mean, you turnover prone Desmond Ridder without the high ceiling of an elite passer. Like that doesn't interest me. Okay. Like, and I like the kid. Seems like a great kid. I'm not saying he's a terrible player, but this team has aspirations. And, like right now it's time to give the other guy a look. And so, like it's an upgrade. It's an upgrade against the blitz. You're going to see your guy Brian Flores this week. And maybe that's part of it. Like, hey, we don't have to stick with this guy. You could see Desmond Ridder coming back down the line. This is a week that you'd rather see Heineke if you're the Falcons. And I think they're going to be able to run the ball behind Lindstrom and company inside. So if you want to stay in this game, if you're the Vikings, you got to create turnovers. That's it. Like, that's it. That's the only way I think they win this game. And if Kevin O'Connell wins this game, and I think he's a great coach, like he's even better than I thought.
He's such a good coach they couldn't trade their pieces away because they're somehow still in playoff position.
Yes, dude. And I don't think he's like fully sold on like packing up 10.
They shouldn't be. I think they could make it.
They might make the playoffs, but again, like we talked about this the other day, like what's purgatory in the NFL?
I mean, the Giants made the playoffs last year.
Exactly.
The Giants won a playoff game last year
against this Vikings team.
Right.
So, I lean Falcons.
Cardinals are at the Browns. Cardinals are 1-7. Browns are 4-3. Browns favored by 8 points. Totals 37.5. It's tune time for Arizona.
I would expect them to start tune. And the Browns, they're going to run the football. Like, that's what this game's going to be. It's just going to be a slow slog of, hey, we're better, we're bigger, we're more physical.
Under?
Yeah.
Undecided. not going to play it. Not going to play this one. You see it's 37.5. So, that doesn't fall into our 37 and under total subset of data. But it should be pretty interesting. Other than, just the decision. It's going to be telling, I think, for me, like, what are they doing?
And then the Deshaun side of things. We hear how tough he is over and over and over. And now some doctors are saying, well, it's a bruise. It's hard to gauge a bruise. But then how do you bruise your rotator cuff?
Because it's an internal bruise.
So we can't see it.
No.
How's the imaging?
But okay, a bone bruise. Like when you go in to get an MRI and you have a bone bruise. Because somebody said somebody last week was like, this guy's got a bone bruise.
So is it a shoulder bone?
Yeah, I would think it's there's fluid in the joint. That's the one thing you don't realize. When you get fluid in the joint, it doesn't feel good. And it's one thing to have fluid in your knee and tough through it and run around, but it's his throwing shoulder. He's got fluid in there. There's a bruise. Some people are like, oh, it's just a bruise. But you go bruise your fucking rotator cuff pretty good and then go try to throw the ball around. I'm not as Brian Windhorse here as you, but it is getting to be a big story, right? So something to pay attention to, but not too much attention.
Perhaps there should have been an incentive or two in the contract. Another line of 8 points or higher. 2-6 Bears at the 4-4 Saints. And you feel confident about this one.
I do, not at 8.5, but when it was at 7, I think I gave it out at 7. I feel good about at least a push there. I just don't see how Bagent and these guys go down to New Orleans and score. If you've played in New Orleans, you know how fucking rowdy it is. The way this group has played the last 6, if LSU wins Saturday night and these people are still drunk from that, and then they come to that game in the 1 p.m. slate, it's going to be rowdy in that motherfucker. They're going to be playing the Yin Yang twins, and Bagent's not going to be able to hear. He's going to be bobbing his head like Drew Lock, if I had to guess, but it's not going to be good. And, I watched them play last Sunday night. Obviously, I was on the wrong side of the thing, but they did not look good in that situation. And that's LA on the road. Bears fans probably travel well. I don't think it was a home game for the Bears, but it's not like going to New Orleans, and it's not like playing New Orleans' defense. So I think that's the big question. Then Montez Sweat, this thing has gotten out of hand. From what I read yesterday, I'm Montez Sweat is unsure if he wants to sign an extension with the Bears, which I think could be a hilarious new trend in player empowerment. You can just trade me like a product. I don't get any say. Well, I'm going to start fucking over the team that acquires me and create leverage so that when I go into free agency, you don't want the embarrassment of letting me walk for nothing after you gave up a second-round pick for me. That's a bad deal. And so, on the field, I'm interested to see how he plays. He's got to be motivated as a free agent. But if you're trying to maximize your money going into free agency, it's not a place you really want to be. There's not a lot around you. But what you can do is do what he's doing seemingly right now, which is saying, hey, I might not.
That would be a disaster.
Do you think Ryan Poles asked to have his initials right behind his head?
That's interesting.
On Sunday night?
I don't know.
Big RP right behind his head. And then you have Kevin Warren. Not very good eye discipline when he catches himself on the camera. It's one of my pet peeves. You catch yourself on the TV on a prime time, you look straight down at the field.
You look down at the field.
And then you wait until you think it's 5 minutes after they're off you to look up and check.
Yeah.
Just act like you're watching, be normal, blink.
Yeah, it's true. It's hard. It's hard though. Easier said than done.
Well, and
somebody walk up to me on the sideline with a camera and I didn't know what to do. The side profile shot sitting on the bench.
Right. You got to act like it's not there.
What do? You don't pick your nose.
Yeah.
But for Derek Carr, and I watched that game last week, the shots look good on New Orleans. And we're not just talking about, this game, because this game's not going to prove to be incredibly significant, but down the stretch in division you can win. You look at that wide receiver core. You've got Shaheed, who can take the top off of defense. You've got Olave, who this week is going to play Jalen Johnson, who I think is really interesting. You wanted to trade. Okay, you're about to be a free agent. Okay, go get it. You got to look good, and he's going to play some good wide receivers coming up. So I'm really interested to see how this passing attack continues to progress, because over the last 6 quarters, they've been rolling. And last week, I thought they looked a lot better, albeit against the Colts. They lead the league in deep passing attempts. Taysom Hill was a factor. I want to see more Jamal Williams, as you call him. because I think under center and when they're trying to get their traditional run game going, you should give Kamara a break. Now, I know he's catching a lot of balls that are like run plays for them, and that's a big part of their short game is just get him the ball and that sort of thing. And it's a big tell if he's not on the field. Your matchups in the passing game are different, and that sort of thing is less you got to worry about. But I do think Williams has looked good when he's gotten the ball in a traditional run game sense. I'd love to see more of him. Tyreek Stevenson on Thomas. That should be a big mismatch for New Orleans.
Hurricane, yep.
So I do like New Orleans here. It's just going to be about getting out to a hot start. If they find themselves in a 6-3 ball game in the second quarter, you know what kind of day it's going to be. I'm going to be crying in front of the TV. But I do think, even with a lot of points, and I think people are going to be afraid to bet the Saints. Even though the numbers right now show Chicago's got more money on them and less tickets, I just feel like this is the swallow big side of it.
The 3-5 Colts are 2.5-point favorites in Carolina. Carolina just got its first win. Indy is the only team in the NFL to have scored 20 or more points in every game, but the defense has allowed an average of 38 over the last 3.
Defense is cheeks, and I really like the Panthers here. As the week goes on, I like the Panthers. You know, last week we saw that unfolded. You were on it. I completely reversed course looking at what Frank did off a bye. But I also think watching the new play caller work has been not a revelation, but it was fun to watch. I thought they weren't afraid to throw the ball on early downs. Their run game's kind of non-existent. I know you want a run game to lean on with Bryce, but you got what you got right now. And, you know, if he's got to throw the ball 40 times a game, if you can get the ball out quick on early downs, if you can create some of these run kind of quick game deals, that's what I would stick with. And I thought Bryce looked really good last week. So if you're Bryce Young, hang in there, man. It takes a long time to know if a quarterback, you know, is going to be good or not, who that guy is. People have kind of written this guy off like very early, I felt like. I mean, I feel like people have written this guy off. And, you know, I think he's done a lot with little there in some spots. If you watch him and you really sink into the film last week, the throw he made outside the numbers against blitz in the second quarter to Thielen, I think it was Stingley, came down, or maybe Petrie, one of those guys just blew up the running back, ran right through him. He's in Bryce's lap. Bryce rolls out, crosses body, beautiful ball outside the numbers to Thielen. And that last drive, you know, they end up in 2nd and 19. They're trying to win a football game, and they're driving with their backs against the wall. They need a field goal to win. They get to 2nd and 19. You think about with this offense being behind the sticks like that, not 1st and 20, 2nd and 19. They overcome that. They get to 4th and 2. The throw he made to Thielen, they got two guys in the same spot. They both think they're catching the ball. Just an incredible job by Thielen to catch that football and for Bryce to put it in there. I don't know who was supposed to be where, but, you know, it was fun to watch him move in the pocket, climb the pocket, deliver the ball down the middle of the field. I think he played better. And so I know there's some people that are probably off of him, but I thought the play calling was good, and I thought like one key in that last drive was they're at the 50. Earlier in the game, they heated up Bryce consecutive plays at midfield. In that situation, they dump a screen behind a blitz, and it goes for like 30 yards, and they're in field goal position. And I thought that was just a great sequence for that offense that probably gets lost in the shuffle, but that was a big drive. It wasn't perfect. Like I said, they fucked up the route combination on 4th and 2. They end up in 2nd and 19, but they overcame it, and I thought Bryce played pretty well. They ran 2 times as many RPOs, 7.6 yards per attempt. That's up from 5.4 the previous 6-7 games. So obviously taking more shots, pushing the ball down the field. Negatives, they ran the ball 24 times. They took 6 negatives. That is not very good. I would be careful thinking we got to run the ball. Like, let's find other ways to get plus yardage on 1st and 2nd down. And Carolina's rush defense, not great. Taylor's been heating up. I don't know why they went away from Taylor in the second half last week, but that's your best way to beat these guys is pound the ball. If you get to 3rd and long against the Carolina Panthers defense, this is where they look like a good football team. If you turn the TV on only when the Panthers were on 3rd down, defensively and it's favorable yardage, they look like a good team. Obviously, you got Brian Burns, who's going to have a really good matchup. It's probably the biggest matchup for the Colts. Blake Freeland, Brian Burns on third down. So if you get to third down, third and long, I like Carolina's chances. And another thing, Minshew's dirty little secret is he just is not a guy who covers a lot. And I kind of lean the Panthers here.
The Rams are at the Packers. Packers are favored by 3 points. In the words of Matt LaFleur, quote, "It's just like, we're a mess right now," end quote.
Yeah, it is just like that, dude. I've seen a couple of your games. I don't really know what you're doing in the first half. I think there's a good football team in there if Jordan Love can turn it around.
They got the Bears in week 1, then they got the Saints in week 3 after being down 17-0 in the fourth quarter.
I don't think people, and maybe I'm biased, but I actually value Romeo Doubs. I think he's pretty good, right? Like, I think he's pretty good. I think the running back, Aaron Jones, is a really good player. They haven't used him. Like, this is a week where you could use him. People don't like the offensive line. I don't think they're as bad as people think. It's all about Jordan Love here. And, like early in the season, I saw some things that I thought were really good, some really plus throws from him. I don't know if it's just playing in this offense over like now a larger sample size. It's kind of made him gun shy. I don't know if it's a thing where he just doesn't process well, knows where he wants to go with the ball and has to go right there. But they just look, I've called it a preseason offense before, and that's the best way I can describe them. Like very vanilla schemes that you would see in August as you're preparing to play a team with, a quarterback that you haven't seen play a lot. And so they're running a game plan that like Minnesota should run, like with Jaron Hall. But like take some shots, be more aggressive. You're playing the Rams, right?
Brett Rippon.
You want to see. This is what you want to see. Brian G. threw down the gauntlet this week. He said Jordan's officially auditioning, essentially. Like from here on, the rest of the season, item 1 is finding out if we got our guy. Don't half-ass that. Be aggressive. Put this kid in tough situations. Like, let's find out. Because what you're going to do is you're going to play yourself into a fucked up situation being conservative. And so, like, I would be more aggressive. I would find out what you got. If it goes up in flames, okay, move on. And on the other side of things, Stafford and the thumb, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know. They didn't sell at the trade deadline. They must feel like he's coming back. They must feel good about their team. And if I'm Sean McVay, I don't blame him because he can coach his ass off. And, we said it all year. This is not going to be a good Rams football team. They're not going to go to Dallas and beat the Cowboys. They're not going to go to Philly in the playoffs and beat the Eagles. But what they can do is they can win some games. Like there's a lot of teams in the middle right now in the NFL, and those are games where I like McVay. And like in this situation with a backup quarterback possibly. I remember Wolford in Seattle. I feel like they covered that week. Up in Seattle late in the season. Like he's trotted out some guys that have actually played well when you didn't expect it, and I think he's a great coach. So not that anybody's going to be watching this game. If anything, I'd take the under. The only way the Packers win this game, well, not the only way, but the way they have to win this game is stop the run game because the Rams have gotten that going. And that's a credit to McVay and the concepts and the players that nobody's given a chance, myself included, and they're going out and they're playing hard every week.